Happy Tuesday, everybody. So on Tuesdays, what I'd like to start doing is community deck techs. And so this week I posted the on the community tab, and I only heard back from one person. So Clarano Moss Robot, I will get your name eventually. Thank you for posting this list. So I thought this was a good one to talk about because so this is an older list. This is Naya Dinosaurs, and it has largely fallen out of rotation or fallen out of being played very much because of Naya Discover. So Naya Discover is doing a similar thing with the fight rigging and the Pugnacious Hammer Skull, and instead bringing in the card that's going to rotate out the Angel Fire Ignition, which can give the Pugnacious Hammer Skull vigilance and lifelink and trample, importantly. And so it just is doing something that this deck was trying to do just a little bit better. And since this is largely just in the Naya space for Gishath, right? And but it is a good thing to talk about because it is an archetype that is close to coming back to the meta. So what I'd like to do is just talk a little bit about the Gruul Dinosaur space for a second. If you want to take this version of the deck for its most competitive version, I would recommend looking at the meta breakers that I covered on Sunday and looking up the Naya Discover deck. All right, so here is my shell for Gruul Dinosaurs. Now, not necessarily going into the Naya space. The problem with this deck right now is that it's weak to a lot of the very popular top performers in the meta. So it's naturally not, it doesn't do very well against mono red aggro, against mono red prowess, doesn't do well against Azorius Control or Boros Convoke, which those are usually in the top 8 time and time again in my best of 1 meta review. The one deck that it is favored against is mono red or mono black aggro and Golgari midrange. So if we start to see a little bit more of the black removal coming in, then this could have a place after rotation. And really the card that makes it good against the mono red space or the mono black space, sorry, I keep misspeaking, the mono black space is being able to replay your dinosaurs from the graveyard with Intrepid Paleontologist, especially because the Graveyard Trespasser from Midnight Hunt is going to go away in rotation. So some of the tools that we have got that I think really have been looking to perform quite well is Snakeskin Veil and potentially Tyvar's Stand, both being able to, for 1 green, give your big dinosaur hexproof so that it doesn't die to your opponent's removal. So I'm not sure which one of these is best, going to be best. But really quickly, from what I can tell in the data that I've looked at, starting with mono red aggro, the top 5 cards are Belligerent Yearling, which is the 3/2 for 1 and a red that I decided not to cut or not to bring in because it's really only good against the mono red aggro version that I think after rotation is going to be more of a mono red prowess deck anyway, which then doesn't matter how many 2-drops you have to gum up the board. But then the other one that performs really well is Ixali's Lorekeeper, being able to get it ramp into your threats to speed up the curve. The Bone Horde Dracosaur, as a flying first strike, you're able to shut down the air. Triumphant Chomp, which allows you to remove your opponent's threats. And then the Pugnacious Hammer Skull, which if you have enough of a density of dinosaurs, you don't need to give it vigilance because it only gets a stun counter and if there's no other dinosaurs on the field. So I think the other one, so I'm just going to keep going down the list of cards that are in the top 5 for what we have currently from Outlaws of Thunder Junction. So mono red prowess, the top 5 cards are Itzquinth, Firstborn of Gishath, being able to remove one of their prowess creatures after they've already attacked with it, can be handy on turn 4, and then also just the 2/3 stat block lines up nicely. And we've also, the Lorekeeper, again, being able to ramp is important. The Triumphant Chomp, again, being able to remove their threats is good. And then the Hulking Raptor, being able to get into the top end of our curve, where we can stop them with the Bonehorde Dracosaur. And remember that like you can do things like cycle the Trumpeting Carnosaur at instant speed to remove the Slickshot Show-Off, and then bring it back from the graveyard with the Intrepid Paleontologist, as long as you have the mana, right? The other issue that we have to kind of address is how are we going to beat Azorius Control? Because they're just going to wipe the board and exile everything, right? So the cards that perform the best against Azorius Control are Bonehorde Dracosaur, the Pugnacious Hammerskull, the Trumpeting Carnosaur, and the Intrepid Paleontologist, and Restless Ridgeline. So we're going to be losing the... oh, I already removed it. The Green-Red Land... let me grab the name of it really quick. What was the... It's not the Restless Ridgeline. Shoot. I think it was it's the slow land. It's the Gruul slow land. So we're going to have to lean more heavily on the Restless Ridgeline anyway, unless we're going to be getting multicolored lands in Bloomburrow. So I think we should bring in all 4 of these, since we're losing the other slow lands of whatever they're called. Apologize, I can't remember their name. But this then gives us an alternative way to close out the game, and is a pretty decent man land. And then the other one, the last one, that the meta is likely to shift during rotation, but the other one that we need to address currently is Boros Convoke. And for that one, Atali Primal Conqueror is particularly good. Anything that kind of keeps up with their board. The Hulking Raptor, again, works well against the Boros Convoke. And Intrepid Paleontologist and Polani's Hatcher. So both the Atali and the Polani's Hatcher I decided to pull out of this one, but it would be something to keep in mind if Boros Convoke is around to stay, and they're not losing much. They're really just losing the Voldaren Epicure. Polani's Hatcher being able to create those 0/1 egg creature tokens and go wide can kind of help prevent Boros from just overrunning us. So something to keep in mind. And then the Triumphant Chomp, I think I mentioned that this one is good for removing their Knight Errant of Eos and such. So against mono black aggro and Golgari midrange, the best cards are Triumphant Chomp, Atali Primal Conqueror, Trumpeting Carnosaur, Restless Ridgeline, and the Hulking Raptor. So you can kind of see with that spread where this is, I think, really representing the core of at least those, five matchups. And the Snakeskin's Veil and then the Tyvar's Stand being a very small sample size, but having been performing well in the archetype to prevent our juicy threats, primarily the Bonehorde Dracosaur, from being removed. Because this can just run away with the game, right? If this is unanswered, then this wins the game. So thoughts that I've had as well of potential inclusions to just consider during rotation would be Bushwhack. Bushwhack is nice. It's sorcery speed, but if you're up against Azorius Control and you have no good creatures to fight, it's no longer a dead card, right? So the Bushwhack might actually turn out to be better than the Triumphant Chomp, depending on where the meta goes. So it's a nice alternative if we start to see less creature-centric decks that would still be able to cover some of the other creature-centric strategies. The other thing, too, against Prowess is because everything that we're playing right now is protection for our own stuff and then sorcery speed removal, and the sorcery speed removal from Itzquinth. This was the top-performing card against Prowess. So we do want to be able to remove their threats, and Tail Swipe, Bite Down, or Cosmic Hunger all allow us to target their Slickshot Show-Off at instant speed. And I think that that deck is going to be around in some form. So I think that these are definitely options to be running and to be considered instead of the Snakeskin Veil and the Tyvar's Stand, or maybe instead of the Triumphant Chomp, somewhere in that kind of space. And then again, like I mentioned, the Polani's Hatcher and the Atali as alternative things that we could run. So right now I just kept everything as a 4 of, but it's possible that we could drop down some of these top ends to 3 and then fit in an Atali. If Boros Convoke is really popular, then we can bring in the Polani's Hatcher. So I hope that gives you some ideas for the Gruul Dinosaur space, and we'll see what tools that we get from Bloomburrow. Because right at the moment, it's just we don't quite have the tools to be able to out-finesse the more meta decks. So If you have a deck that you would like to hear my thoughts on and spark some conversation about some archetype, please feel free to submit your deck lists in the community tab. Every week I'll be posting another one that's just like the submit your deck here, to kind of keep it separate from the weeks in the past. So this is always an exploration. I'm not sure that this series is going to be super popular, but I think that brewing is a really fun part of Magic. And so if you have any ideas that you would like to add to how we could get Gruul Dinosaurs to actually work, especially with the up-and-coming cards from Bloomborough, I haven't looked at any of them yet, but if you have any suggestions, always love to hear back from you. So take care, everybody.